very interesting class, I hope, for you all. Organization of the hierarchy. I just want to explain a little bit about this picture. Famous picture, which has been recently colorized, which represents a ravine in Tibet, somewhere in the mountains, where the Master Moya, Utumi, and the Master Wash Kul lived. The cottage up here, and apparently this horse rider is the Master Moya, riding on his white horse up to his cabin or abode, or actually looks like a 3-story building. And there's a little cottage down here. And this figure seated here, which may be the Master Kutumi. I think someone said that this figure over here is standing in the river, the Master DK. So this is a place that's hidden and impenetrable from anyone ever trying to find it through various magnetic fences, if you like, that are set up. So it's interesting, though. These masters are in physical bodies. So these pictures you're probably familiar with from our class on the masters. When we're talking about the externalization of the hierarchy, we're discussing the externalization of 49 ashrams, the 7 times 7 ray and sub-ray groupings equal 49. These are some of the masters that we're familiar with, though most of them are unknown. These pictures have been taken from my website. You can find pictures in these 9 pictures here on a web page that concerns the Master DK. Anyway, most of you are familiar with this subject. I'm not going to linger on it too long. It's not a very good picture here. This one of Blavatsky sitting in the seat, Master Moya standing behind her, Master Kutumi over here, and the Master Master Rakotsu over here. All the masters were involved with Blavatsky in one form or another. So this picture here is one of the ones of Master one of the supposedly more accurate ones as per the description in Initiation Pure and Solar by the Tibetan. And so this externalization of the hierarchy is the subjective basis of the New World religion, amongst other things. The New World religion being a synthesis of all religions into a universal spirituality. And what is that New World religion? The breaking down of the Church's grip on the minds of the masses, the revivification of old forms infused with new life, moving from static organizations into living organisms. Religious students are given occult interpretation, as in the future, of course. Well, already, in fact, now, but more so in the future. The newer light of truth brings people to familiar ground. Truth is to be stepped down so that many understand, thousands understand. So the whole hierarchy is gradually approaching the physical plane. And the world conflicts that we are experiencing at the moment are part to do with their approach, as I've explained before. The much higher frequency of the hierarchy at odds with the much lower frequency of the physical plane, humanity, where we're anchored. The main work of the New Age is the raising of mass consciousness towards the love principle. Of course, the second ray of love wisdom is the major energy governing the hierarchy as a whole. As we know, the 3 planetary centers, Shambhala, hierarchy, and humanity, relate to the first, second, and third rays, respectively. So hierarchy, with the Christ at the center, is in fact the heart center of the planet, whereas Shambhala is the head and humanity the throat center. So, like Nicholas Roerch's paintings, if you pick the masters in underground caves or on mountains, Crystal Cave here is quite evocative. And You can see a few of the masters in the foreground, but in the background there are many other figures around here. Likewise, this painting, I'm not sure what this one's called, but I believe that the box that is holding the stone of Chintamani, which is allegedly from Sirius. So the masters Moya, Kutumi, and Jesus work the most closely with the one who holds the office of the Christ. And 6 masters apparently form a nucleus around this 7th figure of the Christ. As they say in esotericism, 7 master masons make a lodge. And what we have here is the core of the hierarchy. That is a reflection from a higher source and also reflects in the lower sense. And these masters are mainly the show hands or custodians of the 7 realms. So the astral plane work is intensifying as they prepare for outer activity. The masters have to actually learn to work on the astral plane again. They're actually not used to it. It provides quite a challenge for them at times. Master Moya works with the Diva Lord Agni on the first ray to inspire national executives of nations. First ray is the ray of politics. Kutumi works with transmuting religious dogma. He works with rose and blue devas. Lord Varuna, particularly of the second ray. One of my books is a poetry book called that has Varuna in the title. Songs to Varuna, musings of a mortal from his boat on the ocean. So Kutumi works with the angels of devotion, spiritual aspiration. Of course, the Christ himself works with a great army of devas. And Kutumi is on, might remind you, is poised to take the office of the Christ once the present office is vacated sometime in the near future, in the Aquarian age probably. So these angels guard the churches and sanctuaries and temples of the world. Kutumi works with church leaders as well, such as the Pope and bishops and so forth. Master Jesus works with the masses of Christian people in the West. He has a close connection with all church leaders and executives. He works as Christ's intermediary and with the violent dealers. So he works very closely with the Christ. Obviously, they have this relationship from Palestine 2,000 years ago, where the Master Jesus was overshadowed by the Christ for the last 3 years of his ministry. We have a great painting on the left, German artist Kutumi, and on the right by a South African artist. This is described in more detail. If you go to my website, you can find a description about the Master DK. Master Hilarion is in the United States. He's based in Crete, however, in Greece. Works a lot in the United States. He stimulates the intuitive perception in true psychics and presides over psychic research groups, parapsychology, ESP, etc. He impresses the fact of life after life or reincarnation. And he was also responsible for the teachings of the temple writings, which you can find online. They're very good, very, very interesting. The first book in particular is the main one I'd recommend to anyone. The author or the channel was Francis Ladue, I think. Master Brushcore works with altruistic healers. He stimulates those who work in the laboratories of the world, philanthropic movements such as the Red Cross, welfare, etc. He takes a lot of the teaching mode from other masters, and he works, of course, with the healing angels. Master Jupiter, a much lesser known master on the first ray, is interesting, given the fact that Jupiter is a second-ray planet. He lives in southern India, in the foothills of the Nilgiri foothills, we are told. He works with politicians, educators, religious dreamers, and idealists. He's intent upon the liberation of masses and the concept of brotherhood. The English master is responsible for the Anglo-Saxon people, and there's another English master whose speciality is capital and labour, and will be helping to reform the whole monetary system in the next century or so. Master R, or Rakotsi, is also, he holds the office of the Mahachon, which is similar to the office of the Christ and of the Manu. Those three offices create a triplicity or a triangle through which Sanat Kumara works through from Shambhala. So Master R synthesizes all parts of the plan onto the physical plane as much as possible. Of course, his previous incarnations were Francis Bacon and Count Saint-Germain. Don't forget, if you want to ask any questions or clarifications, just put them in the chat as we go. Master Moya, from the same German artist I mentioned before on the left here. And this is the painting on the right is by an English artist. I can't remember her name, but it is of Count Saint-Germain. It looks like it might be in France somewhere, where he spent a lot of time. You can see some interesting symbols down here, like the bird of the Hedon, the caduceus, and this bird, which is pretty much probably symbolic of the phoenix rising from the fire. Christ will bring masters with him and great angels. He will re-enter the lives of humanity with more power. His angels will use colour and sound on the etheric of humans, animals, and flowers. Thickness will be offset. Violet angels will be especially active with four main groups of humanity. Four rays will dominate for those four groups, 1, 2, 4, and 7, with the seventh most potent because it is actually in its own cycle at the moment, gaining strength since 1945. 2,500 year cycle, the seventh ray, that I've discussed in various writings. These devas will teach humanity to see etherically. They will instruct on colour and healing of disease, especially violet, which is the colour of the seventh ray. They will demonstrate the existence of the superconscious world that the disincarnate can be contacted. They will train humanity in knowledge of superhuman physics so that weight will be transmuted, such as the building of the pyramids. Motion will be rapid and noiseless. Fatigue will be eliminated. Etheric levels will be worked upon. Well, I can hardly wait. The devas will teach how to nourish the body and draw from the ethers the right food via the splenic center, via the solar rays coming through the splenic center, as we explored, I think, in the esoteric healing class. Humanity will concentrate on the etheric, and physical health will be automatic. They will teach, these angels will teach humanity how to expand consciousness. So if you take all these things into account, the Aquarian age of 2,000 odd years promises to be a very steep learning curve with massive expansion of consciousness in humanity. And I think a lot of humanity are ready for that. This painting is called The Temple of Peace by a Dutch artist that I posted recently on Facebook and on my Esoteric Astrologer Telegram channel. Very beautiful artwork this guy does. He worked closely with Rudolf Steiner, and in fact, I think Steiner's Gothenium is based upon this building, which you can see here. Very evocative, beautiful painting. It's right up there with Roerich, I think, in terms of the evocative nature of the painting and the colouring. I posted about 25 pictures on my Facebook page. If anything on Facebook, you can find them there. Or just simply, I was going to say Google the images, but I'm just trying to think of his name now. Arild, as in A-R-I-L-D, Rosenkranz, which is an interesting name because it sounds like Rosenkreuz, which was the name that Master R took as Christian Rosenkreuz, the reviver of Rosicrucianism back in the 17th century. So perhaps he had some influence coming there from, but he was definitely a very inspired, intuitive artist, strong Neptune in his horoscope, as I described in one of my posts. So the three main channels for New Age preparation, which I think I've mentioned before in other classes, are the Masonic fraternity, the church, and education. Masonry will meet the needs of those who can and should wield power. Obviously, this is the first ray practice. It is the home of the mysteries and of initiation, and deals with the ritual of deity, and is a way of salvation, a training school for the advanced occultists. Of course, Masonry has a very bad name in New Age circles these days because it has had a successful negative campaign against it from the materialistic forces. But of course, it also has itself to blame because it has been corrupted over thousands of years. This will be the new Masonry that will emerge that admits both men and women. The second ray will be the church that helps devotees, the greater public, and can touch the masses. But of course, this ties in with the synthesis of all religions, so a universal church, if you like, of which the interfaith dialogue at the moment is the seed. The third ray, education, touches the intelligent masses, those who don't respond to ceremonial ritual. And esoteric groups will be in each of these above three groupings. Masonic, church, and esoteric societies will converge as centers of initiation. The public must be familiarized with the mysteries, the law of evolution, and the hierarchy. In fact, the handing over of the giving of the first initiation to aspirants will be handed over from the Christ to the disciples who qualify for that job in the next 2,000 years. Quite an extraordinary shift, which has never happened before in the history of the world. So it goes to show how close we are to really realizing our greater potential. Here's a traditional Masonic lodge that has various chairs that are stations, if you like, and each station has a particular function. And it's a magical ritual place, a temple, you could say. And when you experience the Masonic ceremony, you'll see the beauty of the seventh ray in action. That's all I can comment on that for now. Externalization of the ashrams. The hierarchy is planning to reappear for the first time since Atlantis. I've got here 1 million years, but it's probably closer to almost 4 million years when they had to withdraw after the first great Mahabharata battle. It's quite an extraordinary length of time to consider, I know, but of course corresponds to my hidden history um, um, time frames. Hierarchy stands as a wall between humanity and cosmic evil. It works constantly in awakening consciousness in all forms. It directs world events as far as humanity will permit in its free will. It seeks to impress itself on those who are receptive. Hierarchy directs and controls the unfolding cyclic cultures of civilization. It transmits the energies from Shambhala. It receives the fire of God, which breaks down all old forms. It prepares humanity for initiation, to be received into the Master's ashram, to offer opportunity to serve. It inaugurates new presentations of ancient teachings for new eternity. And so we only have, well, apparently there's only about 63 masters on the planet. That's so great is their power and their evolution of consciousness that that is all is needed. But of course, they're, I'm sure, extremely busy individuals who have many things to watch over with almost 8 billion people on the planet. And so many things going on right now in this huge cuspal period of the ages when there's so much transformation going on. Now, this is one person's attempt to look at the ashrams, the 49 ashrams. And I'm not sure you can read these yellow circles here, but this one says 3-2, this one says 2-4, 2-6, 2-2. These are the ashrams and sub-ray colorings of each ashram. And in particular, geometric formation with one another, because they all work with each other. They don't operate it, they don't operate in isolation or in a vacuum. They are part of the entire mandala of the ashram of the Christ. This is the ashram of Christ. So you'll notice at the middle here is the second ray ashram with the sub-ray of first ray. Is at the center that coordinates all these other sub-rays. Over here we have 5-pointed star of 7-ray ashrams, other swastika of other ray ashrams, the Masters Moya, Jesus, and Kutumi, and their particular ashram. All this material has been derived from the Tibetan's teaching. So it's just one person's, not me, not someone else, who did all this years ago, and just serves to show or give you a glimpse of the intricate relationships of the hierarchy. Beautiful picture that has many evocative ideas in it. The slumbering and awakening of the soul, initiation, and so forth. Before the hierarchy can emerge, the 49 ashrams have to align, and this is brought about by second and first ray energy, hence the 2-1 ashram I mentioned before. Hierarchical alignment will establish a fluid interplay between the 3 planetary centers. In 2025, at its General Assembly, the hierarchy will decide upon a date for externalization. We are now in the stage of the forerunner between 1965 and 2025, almost at the end of that stage. And of course, this General Assembly is the meeting with Sanat Kumara in the council chamber of Shambhala. It happens every 100 years. So this is why the turmoil is increasing. The frequency of the masters drawing closer to humanity is throwing everything out of all of us. And hence the ongoing challenges it takes to really stay focused. The hierarchy are establishing closer telepathic rapport with disciples on all ways. They have to learn to work on the astral plane because it does not exist for them. Hierarchy's readjustment to humanity within the ashrams set up as magnetic centers through which their directed activity will reach humanity. The adjustment will be between hierarchical groups and groups of men and women on Earth. When this is completed, the hierarchy will terminate. So obviously this can take a while to do. So even though they may have their conclave in 2025, as I've said before, it doesn't mean to say that they're going to appear in 2025. It may take several decades to complete this organization of the ashram personnel, and also for people who incarnate now to reincarnate in the future. Hierarchy has many difficulties and adjustments to surmount. For example, new energies pouring into the planet, fresh tensions because of new alignments, human enlightenments and reactions in the face of impending darkness, increased personnel in the ashram, disturbing the rhythm of hierarchy, and the growth and training of members of the hierarchy with an incredible amount of activity. In one of the meditations we do in another group I'm part of, we visualize spending 5 minutes in the ashram of the Christ. And I often see it as a village that the various masters live in various houses. It has a village square and a fountain. It's a place of great peace. And every time I visit it, I get a taste of the absolute tranquility of the place, and also the boundless or infinite love that is there. And so it's there for anyone to penetrate if they so choose, or to connect with. The hierarchy are always looking for people who are receptive to their transmissions, to their guidance. One of the Tibetan's statements was that he bemoaned the fact, this is several decades ago, that too few disciples were as receptive as he and other masters had hoped, because of their polarization in the concrete mind, because of the dramas going on in their life all the time, what's the word, the monkey mind being active and so forth. Hence, the need for all of us to stay grounded and alert through meditation on a regular basis. Something in the chat here. Let's see now. Ilio Soul Voice says, could you please clarify new energies pouring into the planet? Do these energies represent difficulties to the hierarchy or something like that? Well, yeah. They are continually pouring in through all the planets, passing through different zodiacal signs for a start, long-term ray cycles coming in and out of incarnation, sub-ray cycles, the response of humanity itself to all these energies. It creates a plethora of challenges for hierarchy to manage. The newest energy pouring into the planet, of course, is Aquarius. We're still on the cusp of that age, but it's well and truly up and running, so to speak, and will be for another 2,000 odd years. Now, This is a diagram taken from one of the Tibetan books, and it shows the ashram of the Master KH and the ashram of the Master DK. And the overlapping of these ashrams, because the DK, of course, Kutumi is his second-ray master, DK is the second-ray master, but the Master Kutumi is the overlord, so to speak. And so where they intersect means that the personnel of both these ashrams work with one another. And of course, this shape here is the Vesica Pisces shape from geometry, very esoteric form. But what I want to talk about here are these radiating rings, which I may have mentioned in the master's class, 7, including the dot in the middle, which is the master. And it's always a good thing to imagine an ashram as these 7 tiers of energy that we're all gravitating toward. Many people would be on the outside or the periphery of these circles, but thousands would be in one or other of these gradated circles that relate to various stages of unfoldment in consciousness and initiation, which in a sense each circle is a magnetic ring cast on, which you can't penetrate into until you've been rendered suitable, until you've passed the test of initiation, or the master at a glance, as I may have said before, can tell the status of a disciple just by one glance, like looking at the electronic keyboard and seeing the quality of the light that's there. And we'll know at a glance when that disciple is ready for initiation. So we work our way to the center, and eventually the odd individual will become the master at the center of any particular ashram. Not everyone, of course, because there's only so many ashrams to go around. Other initiates will make that choice to go on to other interplanetary or extra solar systemic journeys. So and there we have the Vesica Pisces again in the rings of water here on the left, and in a crop circle here to the right, which was taken in 2017, I believe, and is quite representative, I think, of the figure of this Christ kind of like figure here at the center and the radiating aura. You're representing the kind of synthesis of the dual spheres on the other side. Here's another way to look at the ashrams. This is from an Italian group called TPS. You can find online. Spend too much time here, but basically you have 7 boxes across, 7 boxes down. And you have the 1-1, the 1-2, the 1-3 ashram, and so forth going across. The 2-1, the 3-1, the 4-1, and all the other combinations. And these statements that are made are based upon the respective quality of the ray. For instance, the 3-5 ashram, the study of cycles, dates, and currents. The 5-6 ashram, the construction of ideas. The 6-3 ashram, the communion with the world of ideas. So that's interesting. This group is very Pythagorean too, in its emphasis, basing their teachings on an Italian teacher called, I think his name is Ennio Salvini. Anyway, the information is at TPS in Italian and in English. Here, this diagram also is taken from their website. Another good way to see an ashram. This, of course, the circle, and inside the circle are 7 spheres, interconnected with various triangles, and you can see very vaguely numbers inside each corner of those triangles, which represent different ashrams and sub-ashrams. So that's another way to look at it. So no matter where the masters live, physical bodies in the world, these relationships exist on the at the higher level. There's a Rurik painting, the moon somewhere in the Himalayas. So the plans for several centuries ahead have been brought forward because of unexpected preparedness of humanity. Since 1425 AD, the hierarchy has been aware of the need for externalization, and this came as a major disturbance to the rhythm of thousands of years. Of course, as I mentioned in another class, 1425 AD, the start of the third ray cycle represented the European Renaissance, particularly the Italian Renaissance, where there's a great crop of artistic, literary, and musical expression. The hierarchy have internally prepared, for example, learning how to use physical senses, because they work telepathically most of the time. They have achieved a wide culture and understanding of civilization, obviously being the leaders of many civilizations in their past incarnations, such as Akbar the Great, who was a previous incarnation of the Master Moya. Masters do not trouble themselves to attain proficiency in all subjects. They pick the ashram's brain, so to speak. The adepts of the 4th degree, this is the degree before the degree of a master, many of them have retained their worldly specialized knowledge. So the masters pick the higher initiates' brains, the third and 4th degrees mainly. Initiates of the 3rd degree and under are under the master's supervision and will lead the externalization. In fact, interesting thought. Initiates of the 3rd degree and under, which includes, I guess, right down to the first initiation even, because an ashram is ideally composed of people at all levels of unfoldment to get that snapshot, if you like, of humanity. So, in a sense, all of us are working for the externalization in this life or in future lives, and most definitely at some point in the next 2,000 years. Some of us will move a bit faster, others a bit slower. It all depends on karma and the seizing of opportunity. Later, certain masters will appear and take outer and recognizable physical control of world affairs. They will be recognized for the quality of who they are and what they do. And so they'll naturally assume positions of leadership, of power, and authority. Another great picture of Ruriks, the sage who sits beside the waterfall there with his rosary beads in his hand. It's not a very clear picture, this one, but another very contemplative painting by Rurik. I think there's a few faces in this waterfall too, if you look at it closely. 2 geometrical figures. On the left, we have another Rurik painting, Kuan Yin, Chinese sage, kind of the symbol of the mother of the world, really. So, members of the hierarchy will work as members of the human family, not as proclaimed hierarchy but not as proclaimed hierarchy before the externalization proper. There will be politicians, businessmen, religious teachers, scientists, and philosophers. The world disciples' task is with laying the foundation. It is very difficult because they have to teach truths which are destructive, that is, to break down people's cherished thought forms. They must cultivate impersonality, recognition of faults and virtues, and this will enrage even friends who may have been previously thought to be impartial. Impersonality, one of the great traits of Aquarius that we all have to learn in terms of personality interactions with one another. The masters will demonstrate a failure to be impressed with the old rituals and ceremonies, to the ancient and obsolete ideas. They will bring constant warfare to the conditioning glamours that we all live under. And disciples will meet with little encouragement as a result. Through the idealism of spiritual people or the aspirants and disciples, they might get a rude shock. They might get some tough love, so to speak. Okay. Isolated initiates and disciples are scattered all over the world doing the important task of destruction, plus the enunciation of principles. Disciples and initiates are real builders of the new world. They will assume leadership, high office, in all departments of life. So we're talking here, again, the third degree, maybe the fourth degree, but the third degree down. As I said before, they will be entrusted with the work of externalisation. That is their duty. That is what they're, what else is there, so to speak? So we put there by the people who recognize their talents, their immediate work when coming into power and recognition will be a presentation of those ideas which will lead to a fusion of ideas which govern democracy. And this will implement the new religion, we're told. Democracy as we know it now is still in its infancy. There's a long way to go. The Master Jesus will assume control of the church, and the Buddha will send 2 trained disciples to reform Buddhism. All religions are Christianized. They all need reform or eradicating altogether. Christ will restore the ancient spiritual landmarks, as they're called in Masonry, and eliminate the non-essential, reorganizing the entire religious field. These are really radical changes coming. The spiritually minded financiers will take hold of the world economic situation and bring about great changes. We're having a class next week on money, by the way. The last 2 classes after this one will be on money and sex, respectively. Two themes which seem to be humanity's main preoccupation. So the spiritually minded financiers, yes, I mentioned that. The Christ and Masters will make a public appearance and work in the world. They'll restore the mystery teaching, which will cover all phases of human unfoldment. The story of humanity will be pictorialized, perhaps on film. And I wrote this back in the mid-90s, actually, this class. So I've got HHH here because I realized that my Hidden History of Humanity documentary is part of that pictorialization, which I want to take further, actually. Maybe a Peter Jackson film trilogy. Anyway, I dream. And this is the opening scene in my documentary, The Hidden History of Humanity, which is in about almost 10 different languages subtitled now, with English as much your first language.
Philip,
Yes, go ahead.
it's 5.
Oh, thank you.
5 o'clock.
Thank you, Inez. Yes, I've been keeping an eye on that for the last 10 minutes. And I'd forgot. So we'll just pause for a moment. and recite the evening mantra. May the power of the one life pour through the group of all true souls. May the love of the one soul characterize the lives of all who seek to aid the Great One. May we fulfill our part in the one work through self-forgetfulness, harmlessness, and right speech. Thank you. Easier said than done. Self-forgetfulness, harmlessness, and right speech. So the second ray ashram will break down old theologies and present a vision of a new world religion. The reason religion, Christianity, much of it is very lifeless at this point in time is because of the theological interpretation of the concrete mind of theologians over centuries that took a lot of what St. Paul taught, of course, was a previous incarnation of Master Hilarion, and dogmatized it, creating what we call churchianity, a rather dry kind of prospect. So that's where religion needs to be revitalized, bring the life back into it. The first ray ashram will cultivate right human relations, creating a new intuitional consciousness, consequently a changing political consciousness and bringing nations together. And this is bringing about the freedom of the individual, the four essential freedoms, the four freedoms that we know of FDR, right international interplay, the abolition of war, clean political regimes, free from graft and selfish ambition. Well, we'd all like to see that. Would not the military-industrial complex go out of existence altogether? Weapons manufacturers, goodbye. So first ray, of course, deals with politics. That's its main realm. The second ray deals with religion. That's its main realm. The fifth ray ashram will show humanity the benefits of the atomic age with fusion technology, not fission, as currently practiced. It will show the reality of energy. Energy such as ether technology, Tesla technology, etc. Science will help abolish labour, giving time to think, to establish new cultural interests for each to unfold the abstract mind. It's very interesting because at the moment the short-term solution for some people like the WEF and so forth is to keep all the unemployed people who have lost their jobs due to robotics on drugs and video games. I mean, give me a break. So this will eventually supervene these ideas, giving people time to think, to establish new cultural interests, to not be stuck in boring jobs, soul-destroying jobs, for each one fold the abstract mind. And of course, the fifth ray is the only ray to pour through Aquarius, the age we're going into. But it's ruled by Uranus, the ruler of the seventh ray, which, as I've said, will correspond to the next 2,000-year cycle of Aquarius. Third ray ashram, worldwide financial adjustment, the sharing principle, barter and exchange. National currencies will be suspended. Material assets will be under an entirely new system. There will be an international group to control planetary resources. Hooray! That's just not happening at the moment, either with the United Nations or with private in the private sector. Can you imagine this factor of resources cooperation as opposed to resources competition. They will build a new structure of material relationships, which is most difficult owing to the evil pull of human selfishness. The third ray is the materializing ray, the ray of active intelligence ruled by Saturn. So more on this next week when we explore the money class, but already we've seen some big changes in the last few years with regard to finance as Uranus transits through Taurus, the sign of money. And so we're seeing the cryptocurrency come in, they move into digital for better or worse. It can be selfishly used or it can be unselfishly, altruistically used. And of course, the whole blockchain technology. So it has it has some very empowering aspects to it, but also, as it says here, the evil pull of human selfishness. We'll always try and find a way to exploit. Seventh and sixth ray ashrams will come later. Now, the fourth ray ashram will be the last, although there is an overall fourth ray influence. As you may have remembered from other classes, the fourth ray is coming back into incarnation in 2025, just around the corner. And it will come slowly into incarnation, we're told, after 2025. So it may take a century to pick up speed. So I think already in the last several decades, we've seen various fourth ray influences, such as the music revolution of the 1960s, various fourth ray dance, arts, and other artistic activities. And speaking of art, we have the Seven Muses of painting by William Blake. Actually, no, it's not. It's another one, but there are some muses involved. This guy over here looks interesting. And I think we've got a pan-like figure here. Anyway, there was an artist far ahead of his time. So the work for reaching humanity by the hierarchy falls into two groups. One, the disciples and aspirants in the field of occultism, which of course HPB and DK or AAB, they have laid the foundation for in the last 100 years or so, and for which we've barely done justice yet. It's going to take a couple more centuries, I think, to really do justice to their work. Two, disciples and initiates from the three ashrams, 1, 2, and 5, I'm speculating here, will act as a vanguard of hierarchy and precede it into the outer manifestation starting in 1975. Now, I don't remember that exact quote about 1975, but I do know that that was the fourth Shambhala impact. And of course, with the start of the internet and the computer revolution, amongst other things. Information about hierarchy should take these lines, an emphasis on the evolution of humanity, its goal and perfection, not the idealistic perfection of the visionary mystic, though. The control of the personality by the soul, about teaching the constitution of man, the subtle bodies, etc., as we've been exploring in this course. And teaching on the relation of the individual soul to all souls, the kingdom of God, is simply soul-controlled humanity. It's a very mysterious statement to ponder on, I think. From a recognition of the above, the fact of hierarchy can be reduced to something natural and normal, has always existed, but remained unrecognized owing to few people living as souls. So one of the main motives of the masters contacting Helena P. Blavatsky back in the late 19th century was to announce that the hierarchy actually exists, to inspire humanity to understand that they are watching and guiding over humanity. And of course, that created a lot of glamour as well. And Blavatsky herself bemoaned the fact that she'd even mentioned the master, but it was meant to be. And of course, Alice Bailey followed up, and the first book, Initiation Human and Solar, written in 1919, is all about the masters, amongst other things. Of course, my book, Masters of the Seven Rays, continues that tradition, and so the teaching about the existence of hierarchy has had a good century to disseminate. And some people believe in them, others are very skeptical, and other people dismiss the subject altogether. So, from a recognition of the above, the fact that hierarchy can be deduced as something natural and normal, which has always existed but remained unrecognized, owing to few people living this. Another Rurik painting here, I think. Are they the 3 or 4 magi? They will be taught the idea of or bodily existence presence of the Master. Christ is the head of the hierarchy and director of the kingdom of God. There will be an emphasis on the unfolding plan for the study of evolution, the historical process, comparative analysis of ancient and modern civilization and culture. Something that's close to my heart. In the book, Externalisation of the Hierarchy, there was so much there written in that book during World War II, I think, and after World War II, that is uncannily appropriate for today. So in my essays and newsletters, I quote from that book extensively. It's so instructive to see history repeating itself and to avoid the mistakes that we've made in the past. In Externalisation of the Hierarchy, page 589, the Tibetan says the thread of purpose will be noted and followed through century after century, integrating not only history into one complete story of the revelation of divine qualities through the medium of humanity, but integrating with it and into all world philosophies the central theme of all creative art, the symbolism of architecture, and the conclusions of science. So beautiful blending all the ray qualities there. This approach to human evolution will upset all the old theosophical and Rosicrucian presentations. Christ will be portrayed as a strong and able executive, not a sweet, sentimental sufferer. Important comment, that one. An inspirer of all faiths who has no use for fanaticism. The quality of the sixth ray, which is going out of the incarnation, thank God. On the left here, you see a photograph I took myself actually at a friend's place of this painting of the Rosy Cross. One version of the Rosy Cross. You'll find many different versions of it. But the rose at the center, of course, represents the heart. And on the right here, we have the theosophical emblem in one of its various forms. The snake swallowing its tail, the symbol of infinity, the swastika, the Om symbol, and of course the saying, there is no religion higher than truth. And of course the sun is behind the whole thing with the six-pointed star, with the Ankh or Venus at the center. When the United Nations has emerged, then the welfare of the world will be assured. Welfare is love in action, Right relations is love among humanity, groups and nations. International cooperation is love on a world scale. Well, this is controversial because the UN has been co-opted and corrupted since its emergence, and particularly right now. And this is one of the major factors that's steering humanity in the wrong direction under the guise of, for instance, the 2030 scheme of the 17 different points that they make, which are all on the surface quite desirable, but actually, in terms of them working out, represent a further manipulation of humanity. And that's my opinion, of course. Christ's return presents no alluring picture to him. It will be painful to come from his mountain retreat into humanity. His major pains have been his own disciples. Of course, we remember the quote from the Bible, "Verily, verily, I say unto thee, the cock shall not crow till thou hast denied me thrice." That was when Jesus, overshadowed by the Christ, was in the Garden of Gethsemane, and his disciples were sleeping around him. In other words, he was absolutely in this solitary place where he felt there was no um, support. And then, of course, on the cross itself, when he took the fourth initiation, that's Jesus, that is, of course, he was hung pendant betwixt heaven and earth. And that's why he uttered the words, my God, why hast thou forsaken me?" In what you would call no man's land. Christ must prove the scope of his mission in world affairs before going to higher evolution. He must reach the intellects of humanity as well as their hearts because of the development of the mind of humanity in the past 2,000 years. It's really taken some acceleration. And we've got up to this point, which I call the 5.5.5, the fifth root branch, the epitome, the quintessential expression of the fifth root branch. And that doesn't mean the whole humanity has developed this quality, but a certain, what's the word, special phrase for it, a certain percentage who hold that for the rest of humanity, just as the masters in their small numbers hold the entire planet. The major task will be establishing right human relations in every department of living. Christ has set his face toward Jerusalem, that is, he has determined to lead humanity to a place of peace. And of course, as I said, my original class from the Masters, he is in fact occupying two zodiacal terms. First term was for the Piscean age, but he's coming back again, this Aquarian cycle, because of unfinished business to deal with. And this is unprecedented, apparently. And this painting by Rurik depicts the Christ praying underneath his pine tree, I think it is, at a certain time each day, we've been told. It's called the Chalice of Christ. And this place is somewhere in Central Asia, we're told, which I speculate might be around Uzbekistan or one of the Stan countries, which are technically Central Asia, as opposed to East Asia, which is more China, Tibet, and so forth. How can I personally meet this challenge? What can I specifically do? What are the steps that I and every other aspirant should take? The sealing of the door where evil dwells, as related in the Great Invocation, is the establishing of right human relations. There is an inertia of the average spiritually minded who eventually rationalize successfully that they are doing the best that they can do under the circumstances. Inertia is a quality of the second ray too, by the way. The truth is that only 1 or 2 hours per day is needed to do the work, according to the Tibetan. Circumstances or environment are no excuse or obstacle to the spiritual life, he says. He also says people hide behind the alibi of poor health, imagined ill. The only solution for creeping inertia is to ignore the body and take the joy in the livingness of service. DK does have a certain first-ray energy, even though he's a second-ray master. And this leads to a longer life. Needless self-care and preoccupation can be sent serving hierarchy. Another alibi is fear, which leads to inertia. Yes, indeed, fear cripples us all, particularly average humanity who are yet unawakened. So we must demonstrate activity, he says, and not hide behind alibi. Another rendition of the Christ or Jesus. And he goes on to say that aspirants and disciples have a fear of intruding, of being rebuffed, or being seen to be peculiar. Indeed, though, when it's a classic story, isn't it, when people start to explore New Age subjects that the family thinks they're really crazy or out there. Hence, people keep silent, never discovering how ready people are for the discussion of Christ's return. And this is what he calls spiritual cowardice. This is partly to do with the fact that of the awareness that Christianity has crystallized. And so talking about the Christ can immediately get people's back up. And he goes on to say this causes millions of hours of lost service. It would lighten the load of those with no alibi. Inertia is not simply psychological, matter is involved. Tamas, or inertia, is the slowest aspect of substance. Tamas can be transmuted into rajas, or activity, which leads to sattva, or rhythm. So we're talking the moon, sun, and rising sign, relating to those three principles. Rising sign, sattva, sun sign, rajas, and the moon sign, tamas. So with regard to money needed for the externalization of the hierarchy, millions of people can rechannel money. Prerequisites are 1, courage, emotional equality, just to put aside shyness about money issues. 2, workers to make those sacrifices and arrangements which will enable them to give to the limit of their capacity. The difficulty is not organizing money, but getting people to give. 3, metaphysical schools and esoteric groups. Many who are closest to the heart of the spiritual teaching quite often cannot ground on the physical plane the need for money. Therefore, this third prerequisite is the service of the one humanity. The more mystical schools can manifest money much more easily. They're more emotionally oriented in some ways, and so there's a kind of a strong sixth-ray gung-ho sort of quality that people respond to. 4, a careful presentation of the cause for financial support. And again, this brings up the theme of right relations. And 5, a vital and sure belief in humanity as a whole. No pessimism about the future or distress over the dying past. Not an easy one to surmount, particularly in this day and age, but achievable, of course. And that's my last slide, the ashramic structure. I think we'll wind it up there and look forward to seeing you next week.